The annual Millfield Carnival was a long-awaited event, transforming the sleepy town into a vibrant hub of colors, sounds, and smells. Bright lights illuminated the night, casting cheerful shadows on laughter-filled faces. Families, couples, and groups of friends wandered through the fairgrounds, their excitement palpable. But for Rachel, the carnival had an underlying darkness that made her uneasy. Last year, her best friend, Emma, had disappeared during the carnival. One moment, they were sharing cotton candy and giggling at the clowns, and the next, Emma was gone. Despite extensive searches and countless rumors, no one had seen her since. The police had chalked it up to a runaway, but Rachel knew better. She could still hear Emma's laugh echoing in her mind, mingling with the joyful noises around her. "Hey, Rachel, you ready for some fun?" Mark, her boyfriend, called, snapping her out of her reverie. "Yeah, just thinking," she replied, forcing a smile. "Let's hit the Ferris wheel, the view is amazing from up there," he suggested, already leading her through the crowd. As they climbed into the cabin, Rachel tried to shake off the weight in her chest. The Ferris wheel creaked as it ascended, and she caught glimpses of the carnival from above, the vibrant booths, the food stalls, and the merry-go-round spinning in a blur of color. But all she could think about was Emma. "Look, you can see the whole town from up here," Mark exclaimed, grinning. "It's beautiful." Rachel nodded but felt a chill run down her spine. She turned her gaze to the horizon, where the town faded into darkness. A fleeting shadow caught her eye, but when she looked again, there was nothing. "Yeah, it is." After they disembarked, Mark pulled her toward the haunted house. "Come on, it'll be fun." "I don't know, Mark." Rachel hesitated, memories flooding back. The haunted house had always been Emma's favorite, and the thought of going in without her felt wrong. Just a quick walk through. "I'll be right there with you," he urged, his excitement infectious. Reluctantly, Rachel agreed. The entrance loomed ahead, the sounds of screams and laughter spilling out into the night. As they stepped inside, darkness enveloped them, and the familiar smell of popcorn and dust mixed with something more sinister. The walls seemed to close in, and the sounds of creaking wood echoed ominously. "Stay close," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible above the sound of their footsteps. As they moved deeper into the maze, strobe lights flashed, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Rachel felt her heart race, an instinctive fear creeping in. Then she saw something, a flicker of movement at the corner of her eye. She turned, but nothing was there, just the unsettling feeling that they were not alone. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice shaking. "See what?" Mark replied, slightly annoyed. "It's just the lights playing tricks on you." "No, I swear, I saw something moving." Rachel insisted, her pulse quickening. "Let's just keep going." "We're almost through," he said, trying to reassure her. But as they continued, the atmosphere grew heavier, more oppressive. They entered a room filled with mirrors, each reflection distorting their images in grotesque ways. Rachel's heart pounded as she caught glimpses of shadows behind her, always just out of sight. "Mark, I don't like this," she said, stepping back. "Come on, it's just a fun house," he laughed, but there was a nervous edge to his voice. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room, and a flicker of light caught Rachel's eye. In one of the mirrors, she swore she saw a figure girl with dark hair, her face pale and hauntingly familiar. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. It looked just like Emma. "Mark," she cried, her voice trembling. "What?" He turned, following her gaze, but the reflection was gone. Only their distorted images remained. "Nothing." "It's nothing," she whispered, feeling a chill creep down her spine. They stumbled through the remaining rooms, each one more disorienting than the last. The air felt thick, as if they were wading through something intangible and suffocating. Finally, they reached the exit, bursting into the fresh night air. "Thank God." Rachel gasped, taking in the stars overhead, trying to shake off the feeling of dread that clung to her. "See, that wasn't so bad," Mark said, though he looked a little shaken himself. Rachel forced a smile, but her mind was racing. "I think I need a moment. Let's get some food. You'll feel better," he suggested, leading her toward a nearby food stall. But as they walked, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. After grabbing some funnel cakes and soda, they sat on a bench near the center of the carnival. Mark chatted about the rides they should try next, but Rachel found it hard to focus. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for anything out of place. "Hey, you okay?" Mark asked, noticing her distraction. "Yeah, just tired," she replied, trying to sound convincing. As they ate, Rachel's gaze drifted toward the funhouse. The flickering lights seemed to pulse, drawing her in. "I think I want to go back," she blurted out. "Are you serious?" Mark raised an eyebrow. "You just said you didn't like it, I know, but I have to check something," she insisted, her heart racing with a mix of fear and determination. "Fine, but I'm not going in again," he said, trailing behind her as she walked toward the entrance. The moment they stepped inside, the familiar darkness wrapped around them once more. Rachel felt an inexplicable pull, leading her deeper into the maze of mirrors and shadows. She reached the room where she had seen Emma's reflection, her heart pounding in her chest. "Stay close," she whispered, though Mark lingered at the entrance, clearly reluctant. "Okay, but I'm not going too far," he replied, his voice tense. As Rachel moved cautiously through the room, she felt a chill sweep over her. The mirrors warped her reflection, and the shadows seemed to dance in the corners. She stepped closer to the spot where she had seen Emma, her breath quickening. "Emma," she called out softly, desperation creeping into her voice. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and she turned just in time to see a shadow darting between the mirrors. "Emma," she cried out, heart racing. The laughter echoed again, chilling her to the bone. "Rachel." A voice called, but it wasn't Emma's. It was a low, mocking sound that sent shivers down her spine. "Mark," she yelled, fear gripping her as she turned to find him. But he was gone, vanished into the maze behind her. "Mark." Panic surged through her as she spun around, desperately searching for an exit. The shadows seemed to close in around her, the mirrors reflecting her terror back at her. "I need to get out," she shouted, but the laughter grew louder, surrounding her, making it impossible to think straight. Just then, she caught a glimpse of the figure again, the same girl from before, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. Rachel felt a surge of recognition. "Emma," she cried, reaching out. The girl turned and ran deeper into the maze. Without thinking, Rachel chased after her, calling her name. "Emma, wait." As she dashed through the corridors, the laughter faded, replaced by a haunting silence. Rachel's heart pounded as she rounded a corner, and the girl was gone. "Emma," she shouted, desperation in her voice. Suddenly, she found herself in a small, dimly lit room filled with old carnival props. Dust motes floated in the air, and an eerie stillness enveloped her. Panic clawed at her chest. "This isn't funny," she yelled, her voice echoing back at her. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw the figure again, standing just beyond the edge of the shadows. Rachel took a step forward, trembling. "Emma, is that you?" The girl turned slowly, her face coming into view. It was Emma, but her expression was not one of joy. Instead, her eyes were wide with fear, and her mouth moved, as if trying to say something, but no sound emerged. "Emma, what happened to you?" Rachel cried, feeling tears welling up. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and the walls seemed to shift around her. A deep, guttural laugh erupted from the darkness, and Rachel felt a cold breeze wash over her. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of taunts and jeers, drowning out her voice. "No, stop," Rachel screamed, backing away. The shadows began to close in, the walls constricting around her, as if trying to swallow her whole. "Rachel!" Mark's voice suddenly pierced the chaos. "Where are you?" "I'm here," she cried, relief flooding her voice. As the darkness swirled around her, Rachel sprinted toward the sound of his voice. She could hear the shadows whispering, trying to pull her back, but she forced herself to run, her heart racing. Finally, she burst through a doorway and into the main hallway of the funhouse. Mark stood there, eyes wide with fear. "Thank God," he exclaimed, rushing to her side. "Let's get out of here," Rachel gasped, grabbing his arm. Together, they rushed through the exit, stumbling into the carnival night. The laughter and lights felt surreal after the darkness of the funhouse. Rachel looked back, panting, but the entrance loomed innocently, its cheerful colors a stark contrast to what lay within. "What just happened?" Mark asked, breathing heavily. I saw Emma. I think she's trapped in there," Rachel replied, her voice trembling. Mark's expression turned serious. We need to tell someone. The police. No, Rachel interrupted. They won't believe us. We have to find a way to get her out ourselves. Mark hesitated, but Rachel could see the determination in his eyes. Okay, let's figure this out, he said, his voice steadying. They spent the next hour wandering the carnival, searching for answers. They spoke to vendors and performers, but no one seemed to know anything about the haunted house's strange happenings. Rachel felt a growing sense of urgency, knowing they had to act fast. Finally, they spotted an old carnival worker sitting alone near the entrance to the funhouse. His face was weathered, and his eyes seemed to hold centuries of secrets. Rachel approached him cautiously. Excuse me, sir, we need help. My friend is trapped inside the funhouse. He looked up at her, his expression unreadable. Trapped or lost? Lost, she corrected, a knot tightening in her stomach. Many have gotten lost in there, he said, his voice low. It feeds on fears, on memories. You have to be careful. Rachel exchanged a glance with Mark, the weight of his words settling over them. How do we help her? She asked, desperation creeping in. Confront what you fear, he replied cryptically. Only then can you find her. Rachel felt a chill. What do you mean? Embrace the shadows. Face them, he said, pointing toward the funhouse. Only then will the truth be revealed. With a heavy heart, Rachel turned to Mark. We have to go back him, she said, determination settling over her. Mark hesitated, but he nodded. Together. As they stepped back into the funhouse, the darkness enveloped them once more. Rachel could feel the weight of the shadows pressing in around them, but she steeled herself. She had to face her fears. Emma was counting on her. They navigated the maze, each turn feeling more oppressive than the last. The laughter echoed, but this time, Rachel focused on Emma, on the memories of their friendship. She wouldn't let fear take control. Emma, we're coming for you, she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. The shadows seemed to stir at her words, the laughter fading into a low hum. Rachel, came a faint whisper, echoing through the darkness. Emma, Rachel called, her heart racing. They pressed on, the room of mirrors appearing ahead. Rachel felt the chill as they entered, the distorted reflections mocking her. But this time, she held her ground, forcing herself to look deeper into the mirrors. Show me the truth, she yelled, and the laughter returned, more haunting than ever. Suddenly, the mirrors began to ripple, revealing glimpses of the past. Rachel saw herself and Emma, laughing and sharing secrets. The images shifted, and she saw Emma's fearful expression the night she disappeared, her hand reaching out as shadows pulled her back. No, Rachel screamed, reaching out to the image. I won't let you take her. In that moment, the shadows surged forward, trying to engulf her. But Rachel stood firm, determination coursing through her veins. You won't win, she shouted, forcing the shadows back. The air crackled with energy, and the laughter turned into wails, echoing in agony. Rachel focused on Emma, on their friendship, and the darkness began to dissipate. Emma. She cried again, and the figure appeared before her, looking more real than ever. Rachel, Emma whispered, her voice trembling. I'm here, I'm coming for you. Rachel reached out, her heart racing. The shadows recoiled, and as Rachel's hand met Emma's, a blinding light erupted, illuminating the room. The laughter transformed into a soft melody, wrapping around them like a warm embrace. In an instant, they were outside, standing together in the moonlight, the carnival alive with laughter and joy. Rachel, you did it, Mark exclaimed, rushing to her side. Emma smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. You found me. I thought I was lost forever. Rachel pulled Emma into a tight embrace, relief flooding over her. I'm so glad you're safe. As they stood together, the carnival continued around them, a world filled with light and laughter. But the shadows lingered in the corners of their minds, a reminder of what they had faced. Let's go home, Rachel said softly, taking Emma's hand. Together, they walked away from the carnival, leaving behind the darkness that had once threatened to consume them. The laughter faded into the night, but the bond they had forged in the shadows would last a lifetime. The carnival rolled into town on a chilly October evening, its vibrant lights cutting through the encroaching darkness. People filled the fairgrounds, laughter mixing with the sounds of carnival music, creating an atmosphere of carefree joy. But for Jenna, the 29-year-old single mother, a sense of dread clung to her like a heavy fog. She watched her 8-year-old son, Liam, dart excitedly between the attractions, his face lit up with the thrill of the carnival. "Can we go on the Ferris wheel, Mom?" he called, bouncing on his feet. "Sure, just be careful," she replied, forcing a smile. Jenna's heart raced not just with anxiety over her son's safety, but also with an inexplicable feeling that something was off. As they climbed aboard the Ferris wheel, Jenna stole a glance at the operator, a gaunt man with sunken eyes. He looked at her with an intensity that made her stomach twist. "Enjoy the ride," he murmured, and the words felt more like a warning than a promise. They reached the top, and for a moment, Jenna enjoyed the view of the twinkling lights below, the warm glow of the food stands, and the sea of people enjoying their evening. But when they descended, she noticed a commotion near the entrance. A group of teenagers were gathered around a tent, laughing and taking pictures. Curiosity piqued, Jenna guided Liam over. "Look at that," one of the boys exclaimed, pointing toward a display in the tent. Jenna's stomach dropped as she approached. It was an exhibit of oddities, freak show artifacts, taxidermy, and bizarre curiosities. But there was one item that chilled her, a small, glass case containing an old, tattered doll with sunken eyes that seemed to follow her. "Isn't it creepy?" a girl nearby whispered, giggling nervously. Jenna felt a strange pull toward the doll, as if it were beckoning her closer. "Mom, can we go in?" Liam asked, tugging at her sleeve. The laughter of the teenagers faded into the background as Jenna stepped forward, unable to tear her gaze away from the doll. Suddenly, she felt a presence behind her. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in a flowing dress, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. "It's not just a doll," the woman said, her voice a soft, chilling whisper. "It's a vessel for lost souls." Jenna turned, startled, but the woman had vanished into the crowd, leaving only an unsettling sensation in her wake. "Let's go, Liam," she urged, pulling him away from the tent. They wandered the carnival, but Jenna's unease grew. The laughter seemed to fade, replaced by a heavy silence. When they approached the food stand, a man in a stained apron smiled too widely, his eyes vacant. "What can I get for you?" he asked, his voice devoid of warmth. "Just some popcorn, thanks," Jenna replied, her throat dry. As night fell, the carnival lights flickered, casting eerie shadows. Jenna's phone buzzed, a message from her sister, just checking in. "You okay?" She glanced at Liam, who was fixated on a nearby game booth, but before she could reply, a loud scream pierced the air. It came from the haunted house, and a wave of panic washed over her. She pushed through the crowd, her heart racing. Inside the haunted house, chaos reigned. People were stumbling out, terror etched on their faces. "What happened?" Jenna demanded. "Something's wrong with the ride. It's not supposed to do that." A girl yelled, her eyes wild with fear. Jenna grabbed Liam's hand. "We need to leave," she said urgently. As they pushed through the throng of panicked patrons, she noticed the gaunt operator from the Ferris wheel watching them, a satisfied grin creeping across his face. They finally emerged into the cool night air, but the carnival seemed to shift around them. The lights flickered more violently now, and the laughter that once filled the air turned into a distant, mocking echo. "Mom, I'm scared," Liam whispered, clutching her tightly. "I know, sweetheart." "Let's just get to the car," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. But as they walked, Jenna felt an unseen force pulling her back toward the heart of the carnival. "Mom," Liam cried, but she felt rooted in place. The lights dimmed, and shadows began to stretch and twist around them. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the grounds, followed by a deafening silence. The crowd had vanished, leaving only Jenna and Liam, isolated in the unnatural darkness. Panic surged as Jenna looked around. The carnival transformed into a ghostly version of itself, the rides eerily still. "Mom, I don't like this," Liam whimpered. Jenna's heart raced. "Stay close to me." She turned to run, but the path seemed to elongate, twisting back toward the haunted house. The operator's laugh echoed in her mind, a sinister reminder of the woman's words about lost souls. As they sprinted toward the exit, Jenna felt the pull of the carnival's darkness trying to claim them. Just when she thought they were trapped, they burst through the entrance, the cool night air hitting them like a splash of water. Gasping, Jenna glanced back. The carnival stood eerily quiet behind them, the lights flickering one last time before going out completely. It felt as if a curtain had fallen, sealing off whatever horrors lay within. "Let's go home," she said, clutching Liam's hand tightly as they walked away, not daring to look back. But even as they drove away, the haunting echo of laughter followed them, a chilling reminder that some places never truly let you go. The carnival rolled into town on a chilly October evening, a vibrant splash of colors against the backdrop of an overcast sky. Flickering lights and the sounds of laughter and screams filled the air, but for some reason, Emma felt an unsettling twinge in her gut as she stepped through the entrance with her friends. The crowd swarmed around them, children tugging at parents' hands, couples giggling over sticky cotton candy. They wandered from game to game, the scent of fried dough and popcorn wafting through the air. Everything seemed normal, yet something felt off. "Let's check out the haunted house," shouted Tyler, excitement sparking in his eyes. Emma hesitated but eventually followed the group as they made their way to the darkened entrance. The wooden sign creaked in the wind, warning them in faded letters, "Enter if you dare." Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air was cool and musty, the dim lights casting strange shadows that flickered against the walls. The group laughed nervously as they navigated the twists and turns, but Emma felt a sense of foreboding deepening with every step. As they reached a particularly dark corner, a loud crash echoed from behind them. They turned, hearts racing, but it was just a prop falling from its mount. The laughter resumed, but Emma's unease lingered. "Let's hurry up," she urged, feeling the pull of something darker in the air. They pushed through, and suddenly the walls seemed to close in, the fake cobwebs brushing against their arms like fingers. "Guys, I think we should go," Emma said, glancing back toward the exit. But the others were already moving deeper into the maze, drawn in by the thrill of fear. Finally, they reached a room filled with mirrors, the reflections warping and twisting their faces into grotesque shapes. Emma stepped back, bumping into something solid. She turned, expecting to see one of her friends, but instead, she faced a figure cloaked in darkness, its features obscured. "Who are you?" she gasped. The figure didn't answer but took a step closer, the chill in the air intensifying. Emma felt her breath hitch, panic rising as she turned to call for her friends. But they were lost in the maze, laughter and screams fading into the background. "Help!" she shouted, her voice swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The figure moved closer, its presence suffocating. In that moment, the lights flickered and went out, plunging her into darkness. Emma fumbled her way back, hands outstretched, feeling the cold walls around her. The laughter and excitement of the carnival outside felt like a distant memory. She stumbled through the mirrors, her heart pounding as she searched for a way out. Finally, she found an exit door and pushed it open, bursting into the cool night air. The carnival lights were dimmer now, shadows creeping across the ground. She turned to look back, breathless, and saw the figure standing in the doorway, unmoving, shrouded in darkness. "Where are the others?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. Panic surged through her as she scanned the carnival, searching for familiar faces. But the rides creaked slowly, the sounds of laughter replaced by an eerie silence. Frantically, she ran toward the Ferris wheel, its bright lights now flickering ominously. She could hear the faintest echoes of her friends' voices, but they felt far away, like whispers lost in the wind. As she reached the base of the wheel, the operator, a man with sunken eyes and a crooked smile, looked down at her. "You should have left when you had the chance," he said softly, his voice dripping with malice. "Where are my friends?" she demanded, but he just shook his head, his expression unreadable. "Some rides don't end until morning." With that, the wheel began to spin slowly, the gondolas rising into the air, one by one. Emma's heart sank as she saw familiar figures trapped inside, faces pressed against the glass, mouths moving silently in horror. "No!" she screamed, but the Ferris wheel continued its ascent, the distant sounds of the carnival fading into a haunting melody. The operator watched, unblinking, as the lights dimmed further, the shadows deepening around the carnival, as if it were slowly being consumed by the night. Emma turned and ran, not looking back, knowing that the carnival wouldn't let her leave. It was alive, feeding on fear, and she was just another lost soul in its grip. Alright everyone, that brings us to the end of our story. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And if you have similar stories you'd like to share with us, feel free to reach out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.